Hello. All right, let's get started. Hello. All right, we are here to talk about UI in UEFN, and we're going to go over some new techniques as well. All right, it's an awesome turnout. Thank you so much for coming here. My name is Derek Diaz. I am a UX UI director on the Fortnite ecosystem team. And well, I love building game UI, and I also love creating tools for creators, for you guys, to help empower you to make awesome stuff. All right, let's move on to the agenda. Lots of stuff. So we're going to cover a whole lot of stuff. We're going to talk about how we can use devices to get data to drive UI. We're going to go over how you hook it up, how you can use UI materials to spruce it up. We're going to pull it together into examples, HUD, playground, and talk about verse. So, got a lot of slides. So hope you're ready for that. Let's go ahead and do that. Just kidding. We're going to do it all in gameplay. Who's with me? Let's go. No more slides. All right. So we are going to head over to the Flush factory outlet to talk about creative devices and starting with the HUD controller. So the HUD controller is a creative device. It lets you configure your HUD in lots of different ways. So here's the standard Fortnite HUD. You have your minimap top right, your vitality in the bottom left, your quick bar on the bottom right. Let me grab some items. So you can control all those things. Oops, move things around. That's never happened before. Hey, we're back. So the HUD controller device lets you move things around the HUD, but it also lets you totally reconfigure certain parts. So here is what we call the player information. So what we're looking at here is a custom widget. Let me switch over to, this is UMG, our UI editor. So this is a widget that I made. It's a bunch of stacks of text. So this is a view model that we added through the view model button here. And this provides all the data from the HUD controller device that you can hook it up to drive your UI. Switching back here, so I can walk over here and cook myself on the flaming toilet. And notice the health value and the health data goes down, right? You can pick some health up and get some shields too. So all that data is there, and we can look at it a little bit. So it's structured in a certain way, and all these data view models follow a certain pattern. So we got player information at the top. In the middle, there's state data. Are you disconnected? Are you being revived? Or you can use that to control your UI. And in the bottom, there's a bunch of different data about your health and shields in different formats to create the UI that you need. Another piece of UI is the selected item. So this is also a custom widget, and notice it shows you what's in your hand. You can see the values change on the ammo count. Now, it follows a very familiar pattern. We have state information about that item. You have count information, largely about ammo and so forth, and you have your name and imagery of your ammo and weapon. Now, a new thing I'm super excited to share, let me scoot it over here, is a view model for a quick bar. So this lets you, there we go. On the left here is basically the world's worst quick bar. It is showing you all the debug data. See that it is focus changing? So this is the raw data view. Follow the same pattern. This is set up for imminent release in 36.0. Now it has state information, the count information for items, very much like the selected item. Also has durability information, so you can figure that the way you want. All right, so the next thing we're going to do, this is a bit of a speed run, we're going to head on over to so what, past these creepy guys, okay? And we're going to talk about how we hook it up. All right, so let's make something not so terrible, barely maybe. So here's a custom UI. We have our health 80, our shields at 20, our player portraits in the middle, your item that's currently selected at the bottom, right? And if you look on the right, we have a quick bar, something very different from what you normally see in Fortnite. We have the text showing for what's selected. Okay. Some animations now. All right, so let's pick up this and go stand on our flaming toilet. So notice the animations coming out from your shields, the delta value of how much damage or shield damage you're taking floats up top, and same thing with health. I don't want to get eliminated here, so let me back off. Similarly, I gotta spend some, I'm a terrible aim. If I spend my magazine, there you go, and now I change to an empty magazine item, you see the animation in the bottom, it turns red, it says like, right? So that's an animation. All right, so let's look at how this is set up. All right, back to UMG here. All right, so here's our widget. Now, so this is the player information view model that I showed you before. It's hooked up, or we're going to hook it up a little bit. Let's start by hooking up the player name. So we're going to click on the view data binding section, click on the name, that text element, text block, and we're going to choose a text property. And now we're going to use this browser to pick from the view model, that data structure, we're going to pick player name. You can also drag it from here, right? And so now this is passing the player name to that text block, right? And we can do the same thing for health here. Our health value is displayed as text. We're going to add it here. We're going to choose a text property. Now, the one difference here is that text, that health value is actually coming in as a decimal value. It's a floating point number. So we're going to choose convert it from a float to text, right? And now we're going to choose the health value in that same way from the view model. So that's how you would set up passing a number to a text field, to a text property. The last thing I want to show on this one is how you would set up the player's portrait, the avatar portrait. So we click on the add widget for that image, and then we're going to go ahead and pick the brush. And now we are going to do another conversion function, not float to text, but we're going to choose make brush from soft texture. What's a soft texture? So it's like a lazy loaded image, so it's not all preloaded. So that's the way the data structure works, or player information. It comes in as a soft texture. So we're going to choose that player avatar icon here, and now that's going to be hooked up. All right, now animations. So we saw some pretty cool animations, or some okay animations. I did them with myself, so I'm not a UI artist. So we have the heart popping up with the when you're losing health. We have shields numbers popping up and the shake. And when low shields happens, that kind of highlights. So here's our three animations, the animation sequencer. And you can kind of scrub this and see how that works, right? So we made those animations. How do we trigger them? All right, so triggering animations can be done this way. We have 3 when statements. We add a condition. I added them here in advance. And we set this up to say, when the health data from that view model, the health delta, which is to say if you take damage, it's a negative number, is less than 0, we're going to play an animation. And of course, we're going to play the lose health animation. Same thing for shield delta. And for shield, when the low shield hits, we're saying, hey, when your shield is less than 30, play that low shield animation. All right, there's a little bit of a speed run. Let me jump back here. OK, so let's go ahead and turn that off. And we're going to head over to past the creepy guys, yowzers, and we're going to go talk about UI materials over here at the Pizza Pit. All right, so UI materials. So UI materials are a way to enhance your UI. They are highly customizable, 2D art, and they can be controlled from verse code. They can be controlled from UMG. And so let's go ahead and pick up some floating pizza here to have a look, because why not? Magic pizza. All right, so here is an example of a meter. Meters are really common in UI, right? Now, all these are from the same material, right, with different properties. Here you see rounded edges, you see the sharp edges, the gradients. They all look really different, right? Here's some more cool 3D effect on the bottom here, right? Now, all these materials are from the same material set, and you can actually go grab them from the UEFN UI feature example that is in UEFN. So they're sitting under a folder called UI library there, I believe. And so we can have a look at these a little bit now. Okay, so you'll find this set of materials there. And these are a bunch of different meters and bars. We're going to look at these in a second. And things to help you make textures more interesting. You can right-click on a material, a UI material, and you can say create instance. And I have a bunch here. But let's go ahead and let's customize a very neutral one. So this is our linear meter, good old linear meter, right? And you can change a property right here. And you can see it's a meter. It's doing what meters do. You can also set rounded edges. It's a little bit aliased, right? So we can address that. We can change slant, right? Make it kind of interesting that way. Even do some crazy 3D effects, because why not? Notice this is handy for a lot of times. You want to add an end cap color, so it looks easy to see. And you can make that rounded as well. All right, cool. Whoops, there we go. And lots of color options along a gradient. You can colorize the bar meter and the background colors very separately. It's hard to talk while doing this at the same time. All right, so here's something I threw together literally in front of you in 2 seconds, and it looks very different from what it started with. No? Cool. All right, so we have many materials there, and we're going to go through some of these here now. All right, so this is a segmented meter, and it has rectangles at the top, circles. It can be configured to have triangles. It can also be configured to use a texture of your own, or just some from the library that we've included. They can be configured to be discrete, so they're not just continuous and smooth. This could fit your gameplay better. And this is another one where we have that stroke, right, and inner fill colors. Now, you might be asking, it's a texture. How do you do that? You can't just do that, right? So we're using signed distance field images. Signed distance field images, it's a format for making a raster image optimized to let you, say, have sharp outlines at different sizes. So this fish is just a plain old texture. When you blow it up, it's pixelated. This is an SDF version of that, and as you see, it's smooth edges. This lets you do cool things like outlines and borders and other things. We use this quite a bit here. All right, moving on, next piece of pizza. Radials, really handy, making UI for lots of reasons. This is all from one material, pretty handy. You can see they can be continuous or smooth. This one in the middle has some pretty cool gradient things happening. All right, I got to keep it moving here, so let's go on to the next. All right, so this is a texture meter. Now these are SDFs because you can see different treatment happening. This bottom one has a border around it. There is an inner animated texture happening on the fill here, and and these are just really cool. You can actually. We provide a bunch of these. We provide a bunch of these in the library. This is just a snippet of them. So here's a bunch of those backgrounds, and you can just go ahead and change that to any number of those that we have. All right, pretty easy to use. Here's some other ones. The green one has a property to blink red when it's low. Great for showing low health or low values. And this is another, maybe it's a health and mana indicator. All right, cool. Let's go on. Here we have SDF icons. You can see they scale really well at different sizes. All right, now this is showing off the different shadow capabilities. You got a top-down shadow, offset shadow. These shadows are different angles than the main image and different colors. Over here we have outer outline, inner outline, and shadow combinations. Let you do a lot of cool permutations. And this is demonstrating that you can apply an additive blend mode to a material as well. So let me maybe close some of these things. So if we were to, you can see it right here really well actually on the ice cream cones, how it comes through. So that's just right here, additive as a setting. All right, jumping back into it. So a lot of texture effects that we can do with a material called texture effects. You have tiling with animations. You can do a bounce. That heart has 3 different bounce patterns on it. And the bottom character has a warping effect. Maybe when you're dizzy or something, you can use that. There is a pixelation and another bounce. I like the one on the right. It can be used to create like a jukebox or a slot machine type animation with multiple icons. And this is pretty fun. There's a lot of different coloration capabilities with animations as well. All right, and picking up this last piece of pizza here. This is our mask texture. So what happens here is you can tell the material to allow the inner image to poke through in different places, in different ways. And you can configure it lots of different ways, and you can control it also through animation sequencer. Okay, and let me jump over here to show that. This has a nice feature to preview the mask. So you can see how I can move this. And this is how you can configure what part will poke out, will come through. And you can change the shape and a bunch of different properties. Okay. Let me walk over to this pizza and pick this up. All right, so now we're going to apply a bunch of those different materials to another version of the world's worst HUD. So all of these images, all of these materials are being data-driven by the player vitality information. So let me show that data binding briefly here. I'm going to jump into this. So all of these or mostly have the same data binding. So bar, that's this one right here. All we're doing here is we're grabbing the brush of that image, and we're using a parameter conversion function called setScalarParameter. And what that's doing is letting us drive that health normalized data, that's your health between 0 and 1, to a parameter that we type in called progress. And when we look at that, as you saw previously, these materials had a property called progress that when you change that value, it moves. And they're all the same, except for maybe this one here. This one, we're changing the bounce speed parameter just for fun, just because. All right, so let's walk into here and we see our trusty flaming toilet, and we can watch those values change. On the bottom right, the character bounces more slowly as they take more damage. Bottom left, they kind of scoot from green to red as they take more damage, just because. All right, let me turn that off. And we are going to head into a room right here where we can look at applying those materials not just to your HUD, but also to other devices that provide data. All right, so let's look at a timer here first. Okay, so on the top right here, what you can see is the view model data for the timer device. It has the values of time, the display text, which is convenient to pass to text fields, and the states. Is that timer paused? Is it started? Is it in urgency mode where the behavior changes? And if we were to, so let me walk over here and you can see this is a default UI for that timer, right? Not terribly interesting, it's a default. And on the right here is going to be a custom widget timer that I made. Actually, you can see this on the expo floor. If you look at the LLM demo where you shoot targets. So these are all using those same materials. And you can see on the top left, that's the data view from the view model that we're just using to pipe into the materials and the properties on the right, on the widget on the right. Okay. So the next thing we're going to go look at here is a skilled interaction device. So let me just demonstrate this thing first. Skilled interaction device is a device which creates a minigame, basically. I can create 3 different types of minigames. Here it's making a stop the bar when you're in the middle color zone. There we go. It can also be used to do a radial version of that. Same game, and it has another built-in format for radial. All right. So this has a fairly complicated view model, actually, but it does allow you to create your own widget and utilize all that data to make your own interactive experience. So we have your labels at the top with the header and description, the meter values for the current meter, the good zone, the perfect zone. You saw 2 colored zones there. The success failure count and more colors on the bottom and so forth, right? So let me show an example that uses that to create a custom widget. Now this one's actually not using a lot of materials. This is more texture-based, but it's a nice bright example. So you can see that the current value is changing, and it's animating on the right. So now, I actually probably set this up wrong at the last second, and it shouldn't give me a success just then. But you get the idea. You see that success and failures changing. Well, okay. So, and this next one I want to talk about is called Stat Device. This is a really versatile device. It's great to use for just anything that has sort of 2 levels, like a level, a value, and once the value hits some threshold, the next level can level up. So XP and levels, for example. This has name and color and your state information, is it at maximum, and all those values I just spoke about. So this is really hard to see. It says luck in the bottom left corner. That's the default widget of this device. I just called it luck and gave that icon. So that's a tracker on the screen, what you get out of the box. So we're going to look at a custom version of that now. We're going to run over here. All right, we're going to pick this up. Holding pizza still. All right, so top left corner is that data that we were just looking at, the sort of debug view, if you will. I chose that color pink and the alien head, and you see added those to the pickups there. In the middle, that radial is a widget counter that's set up with the animations and the data bindings using the same principles that we went over before, using those same materials that we just looked at. I'll just kind of walk through here, and you can see how it's triggering animation. And once it levels up, it's triggering another animation right there. So you can use this really for anything you want. It doesn't have to just be sort of statistics-based or stat-based. All right. All right, now we're going to go look at Bananas, collecting bananas. This is also using the stat device. You might have seen this also on the stage demo yesterday. So here we can, you got the first one to start it, and here we can pick up bananas, and they get added, triggering animations. You can also reduce it. I just want to demonstrate that you can reduce it. And you can play animation when it's done. So that sparkle was a really cool SDF texture where we're changing the different settings such as glow and feathering property. All right, let me jump over, and I just want to show that material. So this is using the segmented meter. Here we go. Let me make it display a little more clearly. And just as we change that progress value, this changes. And this is just an SDF texture. All right. Oh, okay, so for the next part, we are going to head on into what I was calling the HUD playground part. All right, so let me that off and grab a couple weapons. Okay, so HUD playground. So now we're going to look at how we can apply all those principles to pull it together to create sort of full-on HUD conversion, all using a controller device. Let's start with number 10 because it looks like this. Awesome. So this is the data that you have to work with. And here's the world's worst AI. He really never hits me, but maybe this time. There we go. Don't hit him either. If I pick this up, I get another item. So bottom right, or the bottom part of the screen that's the quick bar custom widget. This is that debug view that I created. So not very compelling UI, but this one looks more interesting, I think. All right, so here's kind of a sci-fi looking UI. Wow, I am low on health. Maybe I'll grab some health. Okay, so you see I changed weapons, and we see the quick bar changing, and the selected item changing. Now, looking on the wall here, so if you were to go to HUD controller device, this is demonstrating how you would configure the quick bar, the custom UI for the quick bar. This is a new feature. Here we just chose quick bar slot style 1, and you see it's set up to be, let's go down the list, right? So the quick bar key binding layout is on the bottom. The orientation of the bar is horizontal. We're saying we will modify the custom quick bar layout. And we're telling it to be aligned to the bottom of the screen, bottom center, with the anchor bottom center. And we're giving it, we're scooting it up by 100 pixels. And that's how it gets in the middle there. And actually, we can look at the quick bar briefly here. So what you do is you create a widget for the quick bar slot, a custom widget. So let me zoom into this guy a little bit. This is a placeholder image. It's actually getting data from the view model. So that's why it doesn't look pixelated when you see it. So here's the view model for the quick bar. It's called item entry view model. And all the bindings are configured the same way that we went through them before. And I'm not showing the weapon, the ammo quantity and the magazine size here. I turned that off here. I don't want to see that here. For this next one, we'll have it on. All right, this is a similar one. Let me stand on this campfire, and you can see the health values change. So here we're showing your shields with a percentage number and kind of a cool format for health and shields on the left. And a different take on a similar UI theme. All right, we're going to go through some of these because they're all pretty different. I love them all. I love the colors on this one. So here we have the rarity color comes into the quickbar view model, and we're using that to set the background color of those. So that's why this one has a different color. So all these are using the same materials we went over before. All right, here's one with very thick borders. All right, this one's interesting, very artistic here, and look at the animation effect that can be triggered when you use the quickbar view model with a custom widget. All the little detail textures are coming through as an SDF with shadows and borders attached to it. This one is a bit of a kit bash, different take on that. This is kind of, I think, slightly better or more interesting. I love how the health and shields look, so let me grab some shields. So that's the SDF meter material for the shields and health bar, and they're just overlapping each other to create that effect, but they're independent materials. All right, here's a totally different take on it. This is sort of a CRT scanline effect. Big chunky graphics. I love it. All right, this is one of my favorites. I guess I keep saying that, I think, probably. But this is a fun one. So here we are modifying one of the materials. I'll show you in a second. But so here your health comes across, or your shields is represented by the radial meters. And once you lose shields, you'll see the image in the middle will start to turn red from the outside in. So you create this really cool effect. And we're running animation to trigger the background color changing as well. I forget at what point I made it you die, so let me be one more, push my luck. Okay, so, and cool circles for the quick bar to match that style. Right, let's see here, and I think number 9 here is, all right, so here is a wood grain, because why not? Because we can. Maybe not fitting the environmental theme I have here, but here your shields and health are radial meters, and your weapons are also encased in wood. Right. Okay. Another thing you can do is you can use those materials to show the amount of damage you take on the health bar. So that is more. So that is brought to the attention of the player. It highlights the damage you take, like this. See that red? Common in fighting games and so forth. But it's a good usability pattern. And it works both ways. So let's look at that real quick, because that's a special case. All right, so here is that widget, or a version of it. Cool. So now this is using the Delta material. We didn't go over that in the material showroom, but it's in the UI template. And so you see it's configured to, we're setting the progress value of the material to, via set scalar parameter like we demonstrated to the health, just like you should. And then we're also setting a parameter called delta on that material in the same way to the health delta value. So that is how you configure the value of the delta. And then we play an animation over here that triggers that. Or rather, play an animation that makes it do that transition. And then we trigger that animation through the same system I described earlier. So we do a when condition, and we say when the health delta, really health delta, this could almost be just as not equal to 0, changes, we're going to play an animation. And we're going to play that animation I just showed you, of course. So that's a way to show the health delta value. Oops, let me jump back. All right, other cool things. Teams, you see that I have those test players on the left there. So I like this one. Here we can show all your team members in very different ways. All right, cool. How's this done? All right, this one's a little bit more complicated, but it's really not that bad. Whoops. Let's go to, first let's look at the widget. So this widget is built the exact same way that all these were built. We have text, and player image, and a bar meter being set up to the player's health, right? But now there's another widget that we're using called, I just called it the root. So this is called, brawler widget, and this is another widget. Now what this is doing is, this simply has a stack box in it. A stack box is just a layout component. It allows you to put multiple widgets in order, vertical or horizontal. So this is our player information view model for health, vitality, and so forth. Now there's an array in here also, right? So so this uses the array. So this stack panel is configured to use the view model extension. There's a button you click, add view model extension. I had already clicked it, so you're not seeing it. And we're choosing that brawler widget that you saw before, right? And we're choosing the view model that it has for player information. That's the vitality one. And you can just set the preview of how many you want to show here, so you can get an idea of how it will look. And you can set the template, the spacing and alignment and so forth. And then there's a special binding you do for that. Here you're going to go to the root of your widget, and you're going to choose the stack panel extension, and you're going to choose set items, and you're going to then go back to your view model, and you can choose this one right here. And that's going to populate this stack box with everyone in that array, which will be your entire team. Okay, so that's how that's set up. Variations, cool. I love this one. I do like how the green and blue have that animation effect. This is using the SDF texture meter set to vertical. And you see your teammates are blinking red because they're low in health. Another version of this is you can set it up with conditions to alternate like this. I think it has a nice look. Honestly, if you saw my bio slide, it said I've been working on Fortnite for over 10 years. So I am so delighted to see very different UI within Fortnite. And here is also one of my favorites. This is just a sort of pop art style. And I probably have full health, but full shield, so I'm not showing shields. You don't have to use all the data in the view model. In this case, I'm ignoring the shields information. Come on. Oh my gosh. There we go, shield broke. Now health will go down. Okay, cool. So that's a bunch of examples. The next thing I wanted to do was talk about a new feature, a new technique for making UI called material block. This is something you do in verse script. All right, so let me go through this portal now on purpose. And we're going to head over to the arcade. Here's those test players that were showing up on the HUD. OK, so here we are in the arcade. We're going to talk about material block. Let me step on this trigger. All right, so what we're looking at here is on the top of the screen, we see the radial meter, the stripes that are animating, and that big blue square, light baby blue square. I configured it to change when I move forward and backwards, just to demonstrate this. When I move forward, the value increases. A value increases, that's changing all those three materials differently. So the meter, the radial meter, of course, goes up and down. And the stripe meter changes its speed, and it will eventually even go backwards. And then the one on the right is using a dissolve effect. A dissolve effect would be really cool for things like introducing a menu, a pop-up menu or something, or any type of messaging on the HUD. You could animate that through an asynchronous loop inverse. All right, so, and the character in the middle of the screen, that's just there to demonstrate that's a texture block. We'll look at the verse code in a moment here. And then below that is just a text block, so these three are some of the main components now within the Verse UI API for building UI through verse code. All right, so let me jump back over here. And all right, cool. Here we go. Here's those three material instances. And just to demonstrate, when I change this dissolve parameter, you can see how this behaves. And it has translucency or transparency in the background. So this is a really simple one. That's all it does. This is a custom material. You don't need to use only what's in the material library provided. You can just make your own. And this is a meter we've seen plenty of so far. And again, we're just changing that progress value, and it changes. Now, you'll see all the properties here are all going to be accessible from verse code. So you can do any of these things through verse code. There is a range min and max. And thickness. And then the stripe material simply just has a speed value just for demonstration purposes. Okay, so we're going to jump back here and we're going to look at the verse code. Here we go. Let me open up this is just a verse device. Here we go. All right, here's our code editor. Let me bring it over to this screen. Okay, cool. So this is a really simple file. Up here, we just have some triggers that I added that you saw in the room there to step on. That's just kicking off the UI. What I want to call your attention to first here is this section of code. So what we're doing here is we're making 3 materials, right? One for each of those meter, or those images that you saw on the screen. So here's a radial meter. We're just calling it radial meter. And we are making an instance of the editor asset that I just showed you, which is that radial. We are just defaulting the progress value to 1, just because here. And you can add as many properties as you want here to set defaults. That's the same thing for the stripe material. We're setting speed to 0.5 by default, and for that dissolve material. So we call these radial material, stripe material, dissolve material. Okay, and this is just the verse code that's setting up the event triggers on the floor so I can step on things and the UI changes. This is the definition for the text block that says this is a text block over here. And so this is now the next interesting part. So here are our 3 material blocks that we're creating. So up here we made the materials, and we set up some default parameters. And now here, we're making a material block called radial material block. And then we are setting its default image property to that radial, to that material over here. And then you also want to set the default size. I just chose 400 by 400 over here. And then we're doing the same pattern for the stripe material block and for the stripe material and the dissolved material. Really simple, clean example. I wasn't going to get into too much on the verse code side for displaying UI because there's nothing special going on here. Actually, this is actually not even a great example of displaying verse code UI. But let me just kind of talk it through for a moment. When you look at, where'd the gameplay go? So here we have those materials in a horizontal row, 1, 2, 3, and then you have the texture below it with the player portrait or the portrait, and then you have that this is text block below that. So there's 3 rows, and then the images are in 3 columns. So that's what this stack box structure is doing. We're making a vertical stack box here, and we have 3 slots in there. 1, 2, 3. So this first slot contains another stack box. That's horizontal. That shows our material blocks. And then the next row is our texture block. So all we're doing here is we're setting that widget to be the material block in the UI. And then we are showing that UI over here by calling add widget. When I step on that trigger, we're calling on show, and that just shows the UI over here. We're also setting the radial material progress to 1 here, just because. But that's the next thing I want to talk about over here. So if you look at the bottom of the screen, I think this is really cool. Now, why is this cool? Because this is a very new feature, just released, and you couldn't use materials before in Verse. So you would have to do texture shenanigans in order to create a meter, some of those basic UI elements, right? So now if you want to just create a meter and show leveling up and so forth, all you do is you just set the property directly from Verse on your material. So here when you step forward, we are increasing the value of those materials, parameters. We're saying progress equals progress plus 1. We increment speed by a decimal by 0.1, and we change the dissolve value by 0.25, just for a demo here. And we do the same thing in reverse when you decrease the value. Okay, oh gosh, 2 minutes left. Oh my gosh, I went too long here because the cool part's next. Okay, the cool part's next. Let's take everything we did and apply it to an example. All right. Let's go push that button. By the way, my button was made first, just saying. Okay, so we push the button, and oh, we got some wolves and a boss. Okay, so you have your quick bar slots on the right and your player information on the left, your vitality. That's all the same from before. But the wolf values, all that UI in the top left of the screen, that is all completely material block, setting material values from verse code. The text is changing when you shoot them. And okay, like this guy, actually, I set him way too strong, so I'm gonna stand back here so I don't get eliminated and run out of time. So yeah, cheap shots, I know. But now, notice when I eliminated the wolves, I was in the top right of the screen. I am level 2. I have 2 skill points, and that meter moved, right? And when I eliminated him, I get just tons of XP for that. So we'll see that jump a lot. So that meter rolled over many times over, and now I have 10 skill points. I'm level 6. Okay, that data's not really being used right now, right? But it very easily could be used, and that's all done just by setting the value on that meter. Those images, those textures that we're seeing are SDFs, and we have a UI. So we push the I button here. All this UI completely made in material block except for the text, which is just text block. So this is the same meter as that meter, right? Just scaled up different properties. And I can spend some points. I have 6 points to spend, just enough. This meter is filling up as a material block, segmented meter. And when I fill it up all the way, this guy glows over here. We're just setting parameters on that, telling it to glow, turn yellow. That's not a new texture. These are SDFs. And this says max level. And OK, I want to spawn these guys a couple more times. I know, it's no fair. But I can't even hit him when he's not even moving. All right, so we don't need to fill it up completely, but I can go ahead and, here we go, another one. Cool, OK. For the last thing I have, it's just a thank you screen. I know I'm out of time. So thank you for the team that worked on this. And thank you all for attending.